Totemist. The Old Moore House. I never believed in ghosts until I visited the Old Moore House in Villisca. This happened last summer, but I still get chills thinking about it. I'm sharing this here because I need to tell someone who might understand. Growing up in Iowa, everyone knows about what happened in that house in 1912. 8 people, a family of 6 plus 2 guests, were attacked with an axe while they slept. The strangest part? Nothing in the house was disturbed. No signs of robbery. No obvious motive. The case was never solved. The house still stands today, preserved almost exactly as it was that night. The owners have turned it into a sort of historical site, and they allow visitors during the day and even overnight stays for the brave or foolish. My interest started as a casual curiosity. I was between semesters at college and working on a photography project about historic Midwestern homes. The Moore House seemed like an interesting subject, not because of what happened there, but for its architectural features. At least, that's what I told myself. The first time I visited was just for a daytime tour. The guide, an older woman named Martha, seemed hesitant when I explained my photography project. "Many people come here looking for thrills," Martha said, eyeing my camera. "They leave disappointed or too affected." "I'm just interested in the house itself," I assured her. Martha nodded slowly. The house has its own way of showing you what you need to see. The tour itself was straightforward. The house was small by today's standards, just 6 rooms total. Everything looked so normal, so ordinary. Beds with handmade quilts, a simple kitchen, children's toys carefully arranged. The place had a stillness that felt heavy, like the air itself was dense with memory. As I set up my tripod in the main bedroom, something odd happened. The temperature dropped suddenly. My breath fogged in front of me. "Did you feel that?" I asked Martha. "Feel what?" she replied, though I noticed she wouldn't meet my eyes. Later, as I reviewed my photos at home, I noticed something strange in one image. A dark shape in the corner of the children's bedroom, almost like a person standing there, watching. I told myself it was a shadow, a trick of the light, but I couldn't stop thinking about that house. A week later, I returned, telling myself I needed more photos. This time, Martha wasn't there. A younger man named Tim greeted me instead. "You're back," he said, not sounding surprised. Most people who come back a second time end up staying overnight eventually. "I'm just here for more daylight shots," I insisted. Tim shrugged. "Whatever you say, girl." This visit felt different. As I moved through the house, I kept hearing things, faint whispers that seemed to come from empty rooms, footsteps upstairs when I was downstairs, and vice versa. Once, I swear I saw a shadow move across the wall, with no visible source. In the parlor, I met another visitor, a woman about my age who introduced herself as Claire. "Have you noticed anything strange?" I asked her casually. Claire's expression changed. "You mean like the whispering? Or the cold spots? Or the feeling that someone's standing right behind you when no one's there?" I felt relief wash over me. "Yes, exactly that. I've been here 3 times now," Claire told me. "Each time there's more activity. It's like the house is getting to know me." "That sounds crazy," I said. "Maybe," Claire replied. "But wait till you feel someone touch your shoulder when you're alone in a room." Before I left that day, Tim handed me a business card. "For when you decide to stay overnight," he said, with absolute certainty. I told him that wouldn't happen. 3 days later, I called the number. The overnight stay was set for Friday. Just me, alone in the house, where 8 people had been attacked. I told myself I was doing it for my project, that I needed night shots to complete my portfolio. The truth was, the house was pulling me back. I needed to know what was trying to communicate. Tim gave me a brief orientation before leaving me alone at sunset. Keep the lights on if you want. Though most people report more activity in the dark, there's a landline in the kitchen if you need to reach me. And most importantly, if you feel threatened or scared, just leave. The doors aren't locked. Has anyone ever been hurt during an overnight? I asked. Tim paused. Not physically, no. The first few hours were uneventful. I set up cameras in each room, hoping to capture something. Around midnight, I settled into a chair in the parlor with my laptop, reviewing footage. That's when it started. First came the whispering, clearer than before. I couldn't make out words, but it sounded like multiple people having urgent conversations. Then footsteps upstairs, heavy and deliberate. My body tensed, but I reminded myself that this was what I came for. I grabbed my camera and slowly climbed the stairs. The upstairs hallway was darker, despite the nightlight I'd plugged in earlier. As I reached the top step, I saw something that stopped me cold. A shadow figure, distinctly human-shaped, standing at the end of the hall. It wasn't solid, more like a dense patch of darkness. "Hello?" I called out, my voice embarrassingly shaky. The figure didn't move, but the whispering intensified. Then, one by one, more shadow figures appeared in the doorways of each bedroom. I stood frozen, unable to move forward or retreat. The cold was intense now, burning my lungs with each breath. One of the figures, smaller, child-sized, took a step toward me. That broke my paralysis. I practically fell down the stairs in my rush to get away, spending the rest of the night huddled on the porch, too terrified to stay inside, too stubborn or afraid to leave completely. Morning came eventually. I gathered my equipment, certain the cameras must have captured something extraordinary. But when I checked the footage, every camera had stopped recording at exactly midnight. Every single one. I swore I was done with the house after that night. But 3 weeks later, I returned. This time as part of a small team led by Dr. Fern, a well-known paranormal investigator I'd found online. "Your experience matches others I've documented," she told me. "This house has one of the strongest residual hauntings I've ever researched." We set up sophisticated equipment throughout the house: EMF detectors, thermal cameras, audio recorders. Dr. Fern seemed particularly interested in the children's bedroom. "The younger victims often have the strongest presence," she explained. "They don't understand what happened to them." The investigation went normally at first. Some unusual readings, a few unexplained sounds. Dr. Fern was professional, methodical, almost detached. Her assistant monitored the equipment while I took photos. Around 3 a.m., she decided to try something different. "I'm going to rest in the main bedroom," she announced. "Sometimes that can trigger activity." Her assistant and I continued monitoring equipment downstairs. Everything was quiet for about an hour. Then we heard it, a slow, scraping sound from upstairs, like something heavy being dragged across wooden floors. The assistant looked at me. "Is that an axe?" I whispered, recognizing the sound instantly, though I'd never heard it before. We rushed upstairs, calling for Dr. Fern. The sound stopped just as we reached the main bedroom. She was sitting up in bed, wide awake, face pale. "Look," she said, pointing to the floor. There, in the dust that had gathered on the old wooden planks, were fresh footprints. They started at the doorway and led directly to the bed where Dr. Fern sat. But the most chilling part? They weren't our footprints. They were smaller, bare feet with a strange dragging pattern, like someone had been pulling something heavy. The footprints stopped right at the edge of the bed. We packed up and left before dawn. Dr. Fern published her findings in a paranormal journal, describing the house as actively haunted with intelligent entities seeking contact. I haven't been back to Villisca since that night. My photography project remains unfinished. Some places I've learned don't want to be captured or understood. They just want to be remembered. And sometimes that remembering comes with a cost. Dancing under streetlights. Last night I made a mistake. I stayed late at the office to finish a project and missed the last bus home. Uber prices were surging, so I decided to walk. It should have been fine, just 15 blocks. Downtown Chicago gets eerily quiet after business hours. Most shops close by 8 p.m., and by 11, the streets empty out completely. That night was especially quiet. No cars, no late-night joggers, not even the usual homeless people asking for change. Just empty sidewalks and the buzz of streetlights. I was about 5 blocks from my apartment when I first noticed him. A tall, thin figure standing under a streetlight at the next intersection. From a distance, I thought he might be drunk. His movements were strange, jerky and uncoordinated. As I got closer, I realized he was dancing. Not normal dancing, but wild, erratic movements that looked painful. His limbs bent at odd angles, his head snapping back and forth. I slowed down, keeping my distance. Maybe he was on drugs. Maybe he needed help. Either way, something told me to stay back. The intersection was dark, except for that single streetlight that illuminated him. I couldn't make out his face, just his silhouette, impossibly tall and thin, wearing what looked like a business suit. His dancing continued, limbs flailing in ways that didn't seem physically possible. I considered crossing the street to avoid him, but all the other streetlights in that direction were out. At least here, I could see. When I was about 30 feet away, the dancing stopped. The figure went completely still. Then, slowly, he turned toward me. That's when I saw his face. His smile stretched literally from ear to ear, far wider than any human mouth should be able to open. His teeth gleamed white in the streetlight. Too many teeth packed tightly together. His eyes were wide open, unblinking. We stared at each other for what felt like forever, but was probably only seconds. Then he moved. One moment, he was under the streetlight. The next, he was sprinting directly at me. His arms and legs moved in perfect sync, like a spider rushing across a floor. No sound came from him. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing. I ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. I could feel him behind me, closing the distance. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My lungs burned as I sprinted down the empty streets. I took a sharp turn down an alley, hoping to lose him. The alley led to a main street with a 24-hour convenience store. I burst through the door, startling the clerk. Someone's chasing me, I gasped, looking back through the glass door. The street was empty. You okay, man? The clerk asked, looking concerned. I caught my breath and looked again. Still nothing. I thought someone was following me, I said. The clerk came around the counter to look outside with me. Don't see nobody out there. After a few minutes, I convinced myself I had imagined it or exaggerated a normal person into something scary. Late night, tired mind, empty streets, a perfect recipe for paranoia. I bought a bottled water, caught my breath, and decided to continue home. The clerk watched me leave with a worried expression. The rest of the walk was quiet. No dancing figures, no impossible smiles, just empty streets and the occasional passing car. By the time I reached my apartment building, I had almost convinced myself the whole thing was a stress-induced hallucination. I took the elevator to the 6th floor, walked down the hallway to my apartment, and unlocked the door. Inside, I turned on all the lights, locked the door, and slid the chain into place. The familiar surroundings of my apartment calmed me down. I dropped my keys on the counter and went to the kitchen for a drink. As I filled a glass with water, I noticed the living room curtains were open. I never leave my curtains open. I walked over to close them and froze. There, on the fire escape outside my window, stood the figure. The same impossible smile stretched across his face, his body unnaturally still. He stood directly under the security light, staring into my apartment. I stumbled backward, falling onto the couch. When I looked again, he raised one long, thin finger and tapped on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice breaking. His smile grew even wider. He placed his palm flat against the window. The glass frosted over where he touched it, ice spreading outward in delicate patterns. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but before I could dial, the power went out. My apartment plunged into darkness. The only light came from outside, from the security light illuminating the figure at my window. In the darkness, I heard the window slide open. Cold air rushed into my apartment. "I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice a whisper that somehow filled the room. "For so long." I locked myself in the bathroom and called the police. They arrived 15 minutes later. By then, there was no sign of the figure. The window was closed and locked from the inside. The security camera in the hallway showed no one entering or leaving besides me. The police officer looked at me with pity. "Maybe you should get some rest, son." I didn't sleep that night, or the next. It's been a week now. I've moved in with a friend temporarily. I told him I had plumbing issues in my apartment. I know he's still out there, waiting, dancing under streetlights, looking for his next audience. Bell blood runs? Growing up in Robertson County, Tennessee, means you know about the Bell Witch. It's one of those local legends everyone learns about. But what most people don't know is that my family has a connection to that land. My great-great-grandfather bought a portion of the original Bell property back in the 1920s. What I'm about to share happened last summer when I visited my grandparents' farm for 2 weeks. I never put much stock in ghost stories until then. Now, I'm not so sure. The first night at the farm was normal. Cicadas buzzing outside, the occasional dog barking in the distance. I settled into the guest room, the same one I'd stayed in every summer since I was a kid. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a knocking sound. 3 distinct knocks on the wall beside my bed. I figured it was the old house settling or maybe a branch hitting the siding. But then it happened again. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, deliberate. I turned the lights on and checked the wall. Nothing there. As I was about to lie back down, I heard my name, not spoken loudly, but whispered right next to my ear. I jumped up and turned on all the lights. No one was there. The next morning, I asked my grandparents if they'd heard anything strange during the night. "What kind of strange?" my grandfather asked, his coffee cup pausing halfway to his mouth. "Knocking, and I thought I heard someone say my name." My grandparents exchanged a look. "It happens sometimes," my grandmother said quietly. "Best not to pay it any attention." That day, while helping my grandfather in the barn, tools kept going missing. We'd put a hammer down, turn around for a moment, and find it across the room. My grandfather just sighed each time and retrieved the item without comment. That night, the knocking returned, louder this time, moving from one wall to another. I sat up in bed, heart racing. "Who's there?" I called out. The knocking stopped immediately. Then came a laugh, soft and feminine. "Just an old friend," a voice whispered from the corner of the room. I switched on the lamp. No one there, but a photo frame on the dresser toppled over face down. By morning, I was convinced someone was playing tricks on me. When I told my grandparents about the voice, they grew serious. "It's starting again," my grandmother said, looking at my grandfather, just like when John was a boy. "Who's starting what again?" I asked. My grandfather sat me down at the kitchen table. "You know the Bell Witch stories," he said. "What you might not know is that every few generations it comes back. Not like in the stories from the 1800s, but echoes of it. Your great-uncle John experienced it in the B-50. Over the next 3 days, things escalated. Objects flew off shelves, doors slammed shut on their own, and the voice grew clearer, calling itself the Witch, and revealing that it knew personal details about all of us. One evening, I was reading in the living room when my grandfather suddenly stiffened in his chair. His body went rigid, his eyes rolled back, and he began shaking. My grandmother rushed to his side. "John? John," she called, holding his shoulders. After about 30 seconds, he stopped shaking and slumped in the chair. When he opened his eyes, he looked confused. "It happened again, didn't it?" he asked my grandmother. She nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. "The witch?" I asked. "It's always been fond of anyone named John," my grandmother explained. "Your grandfather, your great-uncle, all the way back to John Bell in the 1800s. That night, I woke to a stinging sensation on my face. It felt like someone had slapped me. I heard the witch laugh again, closer this time. "You look like him," the voice said, "around the eyes. Bell blood runs through you." The next morning, red marks appeared on my cheek in the shape of a handprint. My grandparents decided enough was enough. They called a local pastor who was familiar with the property's history. Pastor Miller arrived that afternoon with a worn Bible and a determined expression. "This entity feeds on fear and attention," he told us. "The more you react, the stronger it gets." That night, the pastor stayed with us. We sat in the living room as the knocking began. First on the walls, then the ceiling, then under the floorboards. The lights flickered. "I bind you in the name of the Lord." Pastor Miller spoke firmly to the empty air. A high-pitched wailing sound filled the room. The temperature dropped so quickly we could see our breath. "You cannot bind me," the voice hissed from all around us. "I was here before. I will be here after." My grandfather suddenly clutched his chest and fell forward. My grandmother screamed his name. Pastor Miller and I rushed to help him to the couch. For hours, we sat with my grandfather as he drifted in and out of consciousness. The witch's voice taunted us throughout the night, promising that another John will fall. Near dawn, my grandfather took a turn for the worse. As the first light broke through the windows, his breathing became shallow. That's when the witch spoke one last time. "My work here is done," it said, its voice now almost cheerful. For now. A gust of wind blew through the house. Though all windows were closed, papers scattered across the floor. Then silence. My grandfather recovered slowly over the next few days. The doctor called it a minor cardiac event triggered by stress. But we knew better. The witch didn't return during the rest of my stay, but sometimes, walking the property line where the original Bell cabin once stood, I'd hear faint laughter on the wind. Before I left, my grandfather gave me an old journal that had been passed down through generations of our family. "Every Bell descendant has a time when they face the witch," he told me. "It's testing you, seeing what you're made of." "Will it come back?" I asked. "It always does," he said. "But we're still here too, aren't we?" If you liked these stories, feel free to subscribe to the Totemist channel for more. Thank you for watching.